Eric started teasing Andrew, and Andrew asked Eric why he was so mean. All of a sudden, Eric jumped out of his seat and started punching Andrew, calling him names and hitting him in the stomach with his lead pencil. It took 4 people to drag Eric out of the classroom. This is a true story and a recent fight that my 10-year-old son came home from school and told me about. It occurred in his classroom in the 4th grade. This is one of many disciplinary issues that I hear about on a regular basis. The same children seem to get in trouble all the time, yet are put back into the classroom to disrupt other students time and time again. Why? Why can't something be done? Why is the lack of discipline such an issue? What causes these students to act the way they do? What can be done to remedy this issue? These are questions that I have asked myself, and I decided to find some answers. Lack of discipline is a major problem in our nation's schools. In an interview I conducted for this speech, Adam Argo, a middle school teacher in Baldwin County, said there are a number of students in his classes that feel rules just don't apply to them. They show a clear lack of disrespect. Mr. Argo explained that discipline problems range from loud outbursts and interruptions to physical altercations. He said bullying is the biggest issue in his classroom and that his students bully and curse as part of their normal vernacular. When asked why nothing is done to those students, Mr. Argo said teachers can only do so much. He is allowed to administer silent lunches to students. He can isolate a student to another teacher in his team, which means when a student is having a bad day with his or her normal teacher, that student will be moved to another teacher in the same team for the day to give the student a chance to calm down. The last resort is to write the student up and send them to the office, which is rarely done according to Mr. Argo, because nothing is usually done with the write-up. The gradual reduction of teachers without the ability to replace them is also on the rise. Eric Westervelt wrote an article in September of 2016 that states attrition is high and enrollment in teacher preparation programs has fallen some 35% over the past 5 years, a decrease of nearly 240,000 teachers in all. Yet another article written by Stephen Owens and published on the Georgia Department of Education's website in December 2015 states 44% of Georgia public school teachers leave within the first 5 years of employment. The Georgia Department of Education surveyed over 53,000 educators in the state, and only 2.7% of those surveyed said they would recommend teaching as a career to their graduating seniors. Why? Student discipline, accountability, and behavior were mentioned as some of the top causes according to the survey. Several causes contribute to the disciplinary problem in the classroom. In my interview, Mr. Argo points to parent involvement. He says that it is almost non-existent in his school. Out of the 1,300 students in his middle school, maybe 10 parents show up to PTO meetings. And if there is a discipline issue where the parents of a student are called, they will only come to the school if they are forced to. There is also pressure from the administration for teachers to not discipline the students. The school's report card, called the CCPRI, is the reason write-ups are turned away once they get to the office. The school is graded by the state, and disciplinary issues are one of the areas in which they are graded. If the amount of disciplinary problems reaches a certain amount, the school's funding can be cut by the state. This pressure from the state trickles down to the administration and in turn to the teachers, which then affects the students. In addition to these reasons, Mr. Argo admits many of his students don't have a very good home life. Several of his students have been diagnosed with behavioral disorders such as ADHD, but do not take their prescribed medications. The reason? Their parent or guardian can go to the local health department and get a check because their child has a behavioral disorder. The check is supposed to pay for the medication, but the parent cashes the check instead and uses the money for other things. In addition to the problem with medications, Mr. Argo says that 30 to 40% of his students have a parent that is incarcerated or they live in a home without their parent. This, he says, has a major impact on student behavior and the discipline problems he sees. We've talked about the problems, we've discussed the causes. Now let's explore some solutions. Solving school discipline problems requires dealing with these problems head on. One way to do that is with positive reinforcement. A reward system is used in Mr. Argo's school. His students receive Brave Bucks, which is named after their school mascot. The students can save these bucks and buy rewards such as snacks or use them to be entered into drawings for gift cards. This has been a positive step that the students appear to respond to, according to Mr. Argo. Having activities to reward good behavior and good grades is also something the school has started implementing. One of the best things Mr. Argo suggests can be done is decreasing the class sizes. In each of his classes, he has 32 students, and it is nearly impossible to keep eyes on all of them. If the class size were smaller, more focus could be on the students, which would decrease the chance of disruptions and distractions. More attention can be on the curriculum. Maybe the most important step in decreasing discipline problems at school can start at home. Parents and guardians must become more involved in their children's lives in and out of school. By realizing that these students are the future, parents should want to be involved. In conclusion, the lack of discipline in our schools has become unbearable. Several factors have contributed to the discipline issue, but now that we are aware of the issue, we need action. I implore you as parents, as guardians, and as concerned citizens for the future generation, become involved. Teaching does not only happen in the classroom, teaching happens at home. Teaching responsibility, teaching accountability, teaching respect, teaching morals and manners, these things will be the biggest change and advantage for our children's future as mature, well-behaved, and productive members of society, and hopefully as future educators themselves. Thank you for your time and attention.